Hi, evening, everybody. This is Mary Chamish. I've got a guest and I think this reality is tonight. So Eliot Bernstein is our guest, and we're going to go through his reality slowly and make sense out of it. Eliot, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Nice to hear from you. I feel I know you, by the way. All right. Now, I'm going to start with your claim. All right, I'm just going to read you. Where did 6 million hardcore Nazi soldiers go after World War II? All right, what you said is they assumed the identities of the murdered Jews and came to America as them. Go to it.
Well, the first thing is, why would Hitler kill the goose with the golden egg? If you have a free labor force that you've got a calorie count till their death at whatever age you choose to kill them, why would you suddenly start killing them and want to exterminate them when they're your labor force for free?
I don't think the Nazis cared about their lives. They worked them to death.
Oh, no. I get that part, but these were labor camps that mainly were working you to death. I would take a free workforce and kill it. That cost the economy a lot of money. So really when let's kill all the people came into, mass production is in the last years of the war when they knew the tide was turning, when they knew that Russia was coming, that they knew they had to get out and get out fast. Now, I think the estimate is about 10 million Nazi party members or so. I'm not 100% sure. But 6 million of just the Jews gives you the best cover in the world. If you're a Nazi, you need to get out of Nazi Germany. Now, here's another interesting tie to that. The reason we believe that IBM had a punch card system in every concentration camp.
Oh, gosh. All right, folks, he's bringing up IBM, and I wrote that down as well for later points so you don't get too lost, but go to it. Do the tattoos. These are important points to me that I didn't understand. Right. Why did IBM come and arrange the identities of the Jews? Go to it.
Well, because these weren't tattoos. These were punch cards that gave name, rank, serial number, where you came from, who you're related to. So now if you're a Nazi and you want to get rid of the bloodline that could identify you later after post-war, whatever, after the collapse, the last thing you want is people in the family being able to come out and say, oh, no, that's not my father, that's a Nazi. So you want to make sure that you categorize them as well as not only getting their identities, but all their assets. And remember,
I want to tell you, I never understood why would you tattoo a doomed person. I never understood that. And you're giving an answer. But what was IBM doing before the end of the war in Germany?
Well, it's what IBM's doing today that scares me to death. They're running the backbone system of the U.S. Census, which is now collecting data like you can't believe, images of you and your family leaving your house, satellite imagery of you, red light imagery of you. It's all tying together in a very scary way for America.
Yeah, but how did they get to Nazi Germany? This is, by the way, maybe the largest American corporation. What were they doing in Nazi Germany?
They were helping the Nazis get new identities and take all of the assets of the people they were killing and take their bloodlines. It was very important to have the bloodline. And that's what a lot of those numbers on your arm are related. These weren't just tattoo numbers. These had significance. And when you get to the significance, you get to a very scary point. What are these? Now, think about this. In the United States, we had slavery. Did we Did you ever hear anybody in the South say, let's kill them all? Of course not. Like I said, why would somebody kill a labor force that's free? You wouldn't. You'd work them to death. Hitler had a very specific, up till the point of extermination ideas for identities, Hitler had a very clear plan. Work them to death on as minimal calories as you can to let them work till they're 65 and drop dead. Because at 65, he didn't really think there was much use for people of Jewish descent at that point. But really,
all right, you're missing my major point. If IBM was in Nazi Germany, that means America in some way were part and parcel of a horrible, horrible slaughter.
Well, you got to be kidding me. Now that we know about the business plot with FDR and the attempted assassination on his life, and Smedley Darlington Butler's, the most decorated Marine in the history of the United States, revelations that they were planning on aligning with the Nazis, the businessmen, which is kind of how I got into all this. Joseph Proskauer.
Oh, gosh, you're getting lost again. That's a new name. Look, I made notes. We'll get to Proskauer, a name no one's heard of. But let's go logically. We're now sending Nazis to America disguised as Jews.
Well, wait, but you said something very important, that there were Jews in America that were helping Nazis. Well, Joseph Proskauer is supposed to...
I'm not sure I said that. I'm not sure I said that at all.
I went to the Proskauer Rose law firm thinking they're Jewish and, a good Jewish firm would never do a Jew harm. They stole my patents, is my allegation. But
Eliot, we got to go backwards. Yeah. You're jumping to the punchline, and believe me when I tell you, nobody knows what you're talking about. Let's go through this. You're saying that Jews who came to America, Nazis disguised as Jews, came to America after stealing their identities. Let's start with
Israel.
that.
And Israel.
I know. Let's not jump. That's also in my notes. We have one crime at a time here, okay? Let's start with this. They murdered Jews, stole their identity, came to America. Let's start with that.
Okay. In Jesse Ventura's book, where he exposes Operation Paperclip, he actually takes a Nazi, and you see how he becomes, I think, Greenberg in America. The paperclip refers to, by the way, the Operation Paperclip refers to taking a Nazi, putting a new identity on top of his old identity and paperclipping it so that the new identity covers the old identity. Mm-hmm. Now, they also worked with the Pope, the former Pope, Ratzinger.
We will get to him as well.
Okay.
But now, in order. Now, my listeners have never heard of you. Keep that in mind. And you've got a very real story, and we'll try and do it logically. You're saying that the American, what you're saying is that America is essentially a tyranny, a fourth Reich, so to speak. Start with that.
Okay. So the idea was for Nazis to assume new identities with the aid of Americans to import them into America. So there were Americans who were helping this, the Dulles brothers, one who became the CIA, which I call the Nazi organization, which has led our country to do all kinds of torture things and secret things and violations of everybody's rights around the world. Drug dealing, drug trafficking, crack dealing, crack trafficking. These guys have done us no good. I believe that Dulles also was bringing in a lot of the, I don't know if you're familiar with the Nuremberg trial lawyers.
I have some knowledge of it.
The judge's trial. So they were picking these Nazis for different roles. You know that the head of NASA was a Nazi, Werner von Braun.
It wasn't von Braun. Who do you mean?
Werner von Braun was a Nazi.
He wasn't the head of NASA. He was chief scientist, maybe, but I don't think he was ever the head of NASA.
think he was the head of
All right,
NASA.
he was an American hero taken from Nazi Germany, and he certainly made his career sending rockets into space.
Oh, okay. He and the head of the AMA, I can't remember his name, was also another Nazi. But
Who was that?
most of NASA, most of the people who worked on in New Mexico at Los Alamos were Nazis. That's
Gosh.
confirmed. That's all
That's not
confirmed.
in your... There, as far as I know, they were... Remember, this is before the end of the war. So they weren't smuggled by paperclip. I think they were Jews, mostly.
I do believe that some of them were Jews, or said to be Jews. I mean, you don't know if they were, because they could have very easily assumed Jewish identities.
Oh, gosh. All right. I'm going to work slowly with you. I actually do not disagree with you, but it's a tough story we're telling today. In 1944, I don't believe in New Mexico they were actual Nazis. I believe that started after Operation Paperclip, but that's my opinion.
Here, listen to this. This is from his Wikipedia biography on Werner. Initially, he was recruited to the U.S. under a program called Operation Overcast, subsequently known as Operation Clip.
Okay.
Does that help?
All right, staying on course now. Believe me when I tell you this is not an easy course. I'm trying to simplify something that actually explains a lot to me, and we'll get to why. Look, real Jews, the real thing that actually did flee Nazi Germany for America, they were not Nazis, but they had no knowledge that there were Nazis amongst them.
That's right. That's right. And the most prized of the Jewish line would be the rabbis, the accountants, the people with educations that could come and assume educated roles in America. Easily moving in, educated enough to learn languages, learn the Jewish religion, look and act like outstanding Jews. But, then again, what else are you going to do? You're a Nazi in hiding under the perfect cover, so you wouldn't start against Jewish people if you're claiming you're Jewish.
Well, they were good at what they did, I'll tell you. Nobody suspected them.
Nobody. Right? But this was a brilliant plan. This was a brilliant plan. We're about to lose the war, and if we lose the war, every one of us is going to come. So we have two choices. We figure Plan B out right now and start, figuring a way out of this country. And what better way than, hey, let's take that labor force that we're not going to need because we're about to lose the war and take their identities and all their money.
All right.
Wipe out their bloodline, bring in IBM so that we can track down their whole bloodline, make sure you kill everything, including the babies, so there's no witnesses, and then just reemerge as that family.
All right. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just throw names out, and you tell me how they were involved. We know the general plan now. Start with first name. Who is Sullivan Cromwell?
Sullivan Cromwell was the Dulles brother, or was Alan Dulles, I believe, or one of the Dulleses.
You lost me.
Sullivan Cromwell is a law firm. Alan Dulles, I believe, was one of the...
There were two Dulles brothers.
Right.
One turned the OSS into the CIA. The other was an ambassador. I don't know who Sullivan Cromwell is amongst them. Certainly not Alan Dulles.
Oh, no. Listen. I've got Alan Dulles. Dulles was a corporate lawyer and partner at Sullivan Cromwell. His older brother, John Foster Dulles, was the CIA guy.
There we go. All right, we sorted that out.
Now remember, these guys are working through an organization mainly composed of Skull and Bones members. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yale and all that, Bushes, and we're familiar.
Well, okay, so and here you have the Dulleses who are importing, in my view, Nazis into the CIA to subvert the United States. Meaning, if you want the 1,000-year Reich, you need a new host body. Meaning, I love German people, to be quite honest.
Really?
Yes, I have no problems with it.
Okay, in other words, the 10 million Nazis were not the German people?
That's right. That's
really?
Exactly right. They were Nazis. Right. Look, that's like saying that everybody in America is responsible for George Bush committing war crimes and torturing
but the Germans took on Europe in 1914. They took on the French in 1870. I mean, they have been very, very militaristic and caused a lot of damage. I think
they do have a bad history of starting wars and stuff. Yes, and they do get into marching mentality. But here's the real thing. A lot of Germans initially went up against Hitler. They were the first ones on the hit list. So anybody who opposed Hitler was killed. This wasn't you were brought to court and tried and you got a whistleblower who was, whistleblowers were murdered that day.
So the strong survived, the weak perished, and you got Germany. And once again, they really made a mess out of humanity in Europe.
Yes, they have their leaders have led them into a path, and they do follow a lot of them. But there were a lot of good German people who opposed Hitler. It's just very hard to oppose when if you're found opposing, you're murdered. It's a very difficult situation, and so Hitler killed off anybody who opposed him right off the bat. So he was waiting for anybody to say, "Oh, I'm against the Nazi Party." You printed that in print. You were murdered the next afternoon, and the Nazis moved into your house.
What I worry about is the next version of this coming out of Germany, but neither here nor there. Next.
Oh, don't worry about it in Germany. Worry that they've moved to the United States. We're the operational center of the Nazi Party. Why do you think America is torturing people, invading countries in illegal wars of aggression, undeclared wars, all headed by the CIA, this group of dulluses who believes in importing Nazis? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is why our country is failing right now. And
I believe your explanation does more than, well, neither here nor there. Next, the Bush family, the Bush boys, and now...
Okay, that's huge. Meaning the Bush boys might be the Scherf boys. There's evidence that the Bushes are actually from the family of the Scherfs, who are one of the primary architects
of the Scherf family.
They are one of the primary... Otto von Skorzeny or something, Hitler's bodyguard, did an expose and says that George Bush was really George Scherf, and he came here to steal Tesla's inventions, and he was probably the cause of all of Tesla's nightmare. The name Curious George the Monkey comes from that whole... Some people say that's George Bush, his father.
Oh, gosh.
Bush
Tesla was 1897. George Bush wasn't born for decades after.
No, Bush won. Bush won, the father.
Exactly. Tesla
is right about the same time. You can check out Skorzeny. He's pretty reliable as Hitler's bodyguard. And he exposes a huge swath of this stuff, which is slowly seeping into mainstream, that people are coming to understand. Look, the first controversy over a birth certificate of a president was George Bush's one. Meaning, people say it's not a legit birth certificate, and I looked at all the records, and I'm pretty convinced it's not. So here, my thing is, the Bushes come into the United States, and they come in as part of the Nazi group that's, mostly a group.
I think they were in America oh, gosh, do we have a difference? You know what? Let's skip over this. I have a timeline problem here, and it doesn't add up what you're saying right now. So let's go on to the next. Out of this will come, well, I hope the truth, but this one's got real time problems. All right, once more, J.P. Morgan, how was he involved in getting Nazis to America?
Okay, J.P. Morgan, whose stooge was Joseph Proskauer, was part of the business
that name
plot.
again. All right, name this lawyer Proskauer. You're going to talk to him. You're going to talk about him anyways. Tell my listeners who he was.
Okay, he was a Supreme Court judge in New York. He is the guy who's responsible for blocking the information about the concentration camps becoming public knowledge in America. His argument against it being released was that it would cause a backlash on American Jews, so we should keep it secret that there were concentration camps. So that's what he's famous for.
It could save Jews. I'm lost here. Why would exposing the camps be damaging to Jews?
That's right. But Joseph Proskauer, whose roots seem to come from a town in Germany when he came here, meaning there doesn't seem to be a family tree. It seems like he accepted a name of a town or something in Germany, or something close to that name in German. He comes here. He's working with the whole gang of fascist Americans, let's call them, or the guys who are helping the Nazis. He's working with J.P. Morgan. He's working with the other members of the business plot. The business plot is their goal is to align with Nazism and have Smedley, Darlington, Butler turn the army against the people if necessary while they overthrew the United States government. They intended to murder Roosevelt. I think they took a shot at him in Chicago, killed the mayor or something. Smedley rushes into Congress, has the McCormick-Dickstein hearings, where he reveals a plot by U.S. businessmen to side with the Nazis and take over this country. Joseph Proskauer was the stooge for J.P. Morgan, who was working to get this done. Can you imagine a Jew, supposedly? Believe me, this floored me when I learned, because I thought Proskauer was a very Jewish firm, and that was a safe thing for a very Jewish kid. I had no idea this is a guy who tried to block the exposure of camps. It was almost riveting. It shook me to my core, actually, and it really showed me that I was involved in something way over my head. But
actually, this is not way over your head. The first reports came from American troops. I believe Dachau was the first camp liberated, and that's when America found out, supposedly. I don't believe that as well.
Well, I think the Russians were in first. I think the Russians liberated the first camps, but I'm not sure. But
the Americans got major PR out of Patton taking German villagers through the camps to see the... Oh, gosh. Look, we have to take 3 minutes off for commercials. Listeners, be patient. This is not a simple story. We haven't even begun this story. So be patient. And, well, Eliot Bernstein will be back in 3 minutes. This is Barry Chamish, and we're going to get a good show out of this. Don't be confused. You're going to be unconfused shortly. All right, thanks, Eliot. Hang in there for 3.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States in 1963.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no secret is revealed. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President today.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America?
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America?
I've got a vision for what I want to do for the country. See, I know exactly where I want to lead. It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for
Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Hey folks, it's Barry Chamish with a very special 2-hour show on a real important thinker. We're going to sort it all out, but first, you get all my books at lulu.com. That's www.lulu.com. You'll see a search box right in my last name, Chamish. Chamish. You'll get to my books, and my website is kept up to, good old David. He's been doing this for months and is still up to date, and that is David Salmon as my webmaster. But my site is barrychamish.com. Now, Eliot, tell people how to get a hold of you.
Okay, my phone number is 561-886-7628 or 561-245-8588. My website.
I was thinking more on, do you have a site somewhere on the internet?
Yes. My website is www.iviewit.tv, and that's IVIEWIT.tv. My email address is iviewit@iviewit.tv. And
all right,
how
folks.
You can read.
Just know for a week you can hear this show and catch that, and that's at libertyarchives.com. All right, here's your claim. And by the way, we haven't even begun. We're going to end up with the Vatican. That's coming up. That is a major part of your thesis, as a matter of fact. But let's go on to this business where you're claiming that the fake Jews, the Nazis, plotted a Fourth Reich in America. You said basically you're talking about a tyrannous coup of former Nazis who took over America and Israel with the plot, and it seems to be in full flight right now. All right, go to it.
Okay, and they had help of insiders, and we were talking about Joseph Prosper, and I just want to read this piece to you about the Liberty League, which was this fascist group of Americans who wanted to align with the Nazis who were behind the business plot that came out in the McCormick-Dixie hearings. On its executive committee of the Liberty League was Morgan Stooge and former New York Supreme Court Justice Joseph Proskauer, the general counsel to the Consolidated Gas Company, who later became the chief spokesman against the anti-Nazi boycott.
That's it?
What?
That's the quote?
Yes. So Joseph Proskauer is
got more revealing stuff than that snippet. All right, we're talking about what you call the New World Disorder, and what you say is this brood of not ex-Nazis, actual Nazis pretending to be Jews, have got America. Well, they've got America essentially, stirring up the world to kill each other. You say they're back. Actually, here's a quote from you. They're sneakier and more dangerous than before. What is this Fourth Reich? What is the New World Disorder? Now dive.
Okay, there was, for example, the New World Order and some of these Nazis. I just want to go back to Paperclip for a minute. There were other initiatives. National Interest Project 63 was a job placement assistance for Nazi engineers at Lockheed, Martin Marietta, North American Aviation, and other aerospace companies, while American aerospace engineers were being laid off work. This is from Wikipedia on Paperclip. Operational Losos, Operation Big, Operation Exelon, Russian Alosis, Soviet American and British efforts to capture German nuclear secrets, equipment, and personnel. Operation Backfire, Operation Lusky. These are all operations to move Nazis under disguise out of Germany with new identities and place them into prominent positions within, the head of NASA is pretty prominent.
All right, I have to interrupt. You're talking about you're talking about operations that took place, via the Vatican. We'll get to that, but it's after the war. You're talking about operations during the war, and I'm very confused.
No.
Look, the German atomic. The Americans did send. All right, go to it.
Okay, one of the most important pieces of history that is easy to find is on Ratzinger, the Pope, and I'm going to read you from his biography a piece that will blow your mind because it only emphasizes what we're talking about here. It says, as the Allied front drew closer to his post in 1945, he, Ratzinger, deserted back to his family's home in Schwanstein after his unit ceased to exist, just as American troops established a headquarters in the Ratzinger household.
It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Operations.
Now, Ratzinger. Okay, no. Ratzinger is a Nazi. He
certainly
in the Nazi
was.
army. Okay,
and I never understood how that was glossed over and he became Pope and all this stuff. Believe me, we'll talk about that shortly, the Vatican role. But right now, you're saying that, the operation to get Nazi atomic secrets, heavy water from Norway and uranium in Germany, that was in the 1944 before all this started.
Well, you got to remember that right around there, the Nazis are realizing the war's kind of over, and that they've got to have Plan B to get as much of this stuff out with their people and keep it a secret and move it into the United States and Israel. And that was their plan. What better place for Jews than the United States and Israel, where they would be sheltered as Jews who have been just hammered in Germany, and people would actually sympathize, and they did, as good people will do, On the other hand, I don't think anybody had any idea that people were being paper-clipped over. And had we have known that, it would have changed the course of our history, I believe, seriously. Meaning, if Lockheed and other aerospace companies, which all start to build a nuclear bomb-like mania, which is Hitler's baby, the splitting of God's basic element and the destructive capabilities that comes from killing an atom, whereas, by the way, fusing atoms is a much better practice. It produces good energy with very little toxic energy. But they're not interested in that. These people are murderous. They believe in a world extermination where they control the world, and they found the perfect place to continue the Reich. They had good friends inside the United States who were aiding and abetting this, who were trying to align our country with the Nazis, who got caught with their pants down, brought into the McCormick-Dickstein hearings, and somehow this all got glossed over from the public. Although some of it, paperclip, et cetera, did actually end up coming out, it got glossed over that we were just after scientists, not after thugs, not after medical guys who were conducting evil experiments, how to poison your food, how to poison your water with fluoride. By the way, U.S., nobody seems to be upset about it, except a few of us. Right now they're putting fluoride in the water, which is exactly what they did in the camps.
I'm in favor of that. It means less cavities. That's not
You're
what we're talking about.
Well, that is. Because if we're saying that the Nazis are continuing their program here in the United States and putting fluoride in the camp water was how they sedated people, well, you should look at why we're putting one of the most toxic substances on the planet Earth in our water supply.
So you
it's not about your teeth. What? It has nothing to do with
So you don't get cavities as a kid?
No, but that's all a lie. That there's nothing to do with fluoride in cavities. And it's not a naturally occurring substance. Look up what the fluoride really is. It's one of the most toxic substances on the planet Earth.
So you're saying you're making major claims. You're talking about the takeover of the United States by Nazis disguised as Jews. Now you're throwing in fluoride, which is a very side issue.
Well, not just Jews. Well, no, but once they took control and once they got in, they started pushing their agenda on American citizens. And right now you got chemtrails that are poisoning you. You've got fluoride poisoning you. Your food is GMO poisoning you. There's so much poison going into us and nobody protecting us because the people who are poisoning you are running your government. And you can see that they've destabilized our economy, which was Hitler's brainstorm, was that if you could destabilize an economy, you could take over a country without a war. You just needed to, destroy their currency, their values, and you'd have an enslaved population. Well, I don't know if you need to look further than what's going on today, but looks good to me that that's exactly what's going on, and everybody who's involved in the crimes is getting off with bonuses. And we're giving them more money. And people have become too big to jail. That sounds like Nazi Germany to me, where people are too big to jail and fail. No, that is not what I grew up believing America is by any stretch of the imagination. What is going on here? In fact, I speak with a woman who was in 3 concentration camps, Gisela Weishaus, who won the largest lawsuit against the Swiss banks, if you recall. And I think she's on the path that a lot of the rabbis she ended up dealing with who got the money to give to Jewish survivors are Nazis or similar acting to Nazis.
I missed that point. The rabbis...
Do you know Gisela? Do you know
You're
Gisela
saying the
Weishaus?
rabbis provided compensation?
She's saying they stole the money. She's saying they stole the money that was supposed to go to the Jewish concentration camp survivors. They stole it. That's her claims. And it's mind-boggling. The first time I heard that from a concentration camp victim of 3 camps, and her husband, I believe, was in 2 or 3, I sat there with I couldn't believe what I was hearing, kind of like you probably are listening to me, meaning I couldn't believe that she was accusing the rabbis of treating her like Nazis. And it was mind-boggling until we started to piece this together that perhaps they are Nazis. And perhaps we're not dealing with what we think we're dealing with. And by the way, look at the rise in pedophilia inside the churches and the temples. It's an epidemic, actually. And that'll get back to the Ratzinger and his brother, actually, Gregor.
We'll get to that. Honest. I have a very logical mind that makes use. Well, I'm just saying, we'll get to it. All right? Now, what you're talking about, you say in this scenario that the CIA became the Nazi center inside the U.S. government. Now, that's a pretty strong claim, but again, when you do the Dulles brothers and you start looking at it and you look at all the money that the American public are just told secret operations and you don't get to know what they are, that claim may be pretty valid.
Well, look at what they're now doing. From my sources, the CIA is being blown apart internally since the Senate torture report came out. They're all guilty. Well, not all. There's obviously some good people who have no idea what's going on, as in with most of these groups they've infiltrated. But, you look at this and you start to really question, are these things real? Is that what's causing our country to go into a decline similar to acting like Nazis? So why is the CIA torturing people? We don't torture people. Our country doesn't torture because it's a violation of both U.S. code.
I think more devious methods are at work where you can get whole regions to do the torturing themselves. And this is, look, when you do a little analysis of the war and what ISIS was and where it came from and special forces and all kinds of things, they're doing a good job without them personally having to torture.
Well, I think that the American government's behind a lot of these terrorist organizations. In fact, Osama bin Laden was put in power by George Bush's father. Saddam Hussein was put in power by George Bush's father while he was the head of the CIA.
The whole Middle East was mucked up by America. No doubt about it. So the war we've got now, which is going to suck in a lot of people, we haven't seen the end.
No, until we rid ourselves of part of the problem here, Barry, is why isn't the U.S. government releasing the name of all these people they brought in here and put a paperclip on? We need to know that. If these people are saboteurs of the United States government, everybody should want a copy of that list. I know that 2 pages of it, I believe, made it into the McCormick-Dickstein hearing, and then somehow we didn't get the rest of the list. But it certainly was a very lengthy 2 pages of names, and I don't think we got out of the A-B of names. I mean, all I could imagine, there's got to be a few thousand pages of this. And who are these people? Are they your judge? Are they the judge? Are they Supreme Court justices? Are they your presidents? Is George Bush really George Bush?
I say your last point. You should dwell on a bit. Unless this president is a total yokel, he's taking every single step to extend this war in the Middle East and make it more cruel.
Oh, listen, what does a good Nazi love? War, death, and stealing people's resources. What are we doing? We're stealing oil. We're stealing opium. Who's doing it? The CIA leading us into all this nonsense, leading our soldiers to be murdered on these bogus wars. Look at what Smedley Darlington Butler said in War is a Racket. He came out and exposed it and said, I'm running business interests, not war. Nobody's attacking us. We're attacking people to take over their banana farms. We're attacking people to take over their oil, and I'm the guy who led the campaign for them. So when you read War is a Racket, you see the highest decorated American soldier in the Marine Corps coming out and saying this is all bullshit. What needs to happen is the whole war industry needs to be crushed. At the last chapter, he gives his suggestions for stopping this. Kennedy, that speech you just played on the intermission of Kennedy's speech to the press corps, where he says, secret societies, who do you think he's referring to? These secret societies.
By the way, who is he referring to?
He was referring to Skull and Bones, which was a lot of the members of that were part of this business plot coup to go with Hitler. It's been a breeding ground of corruption that's to destroy our liberties and take us over. I think he was referring to the fact that these secret groups were composed of Nazis as well when he said it, that he was going to say, here's the list. And I think that speech he was killed right after because he was about to come out and start exposing this and saying, here's the list of Nazis that we've been keeping secret. Here's the list of people who are anti-American who got away in the last hearings where we did the McCarthy hearings, which might have been very good, meaning these people might have been communist sympathizers or Nazi sympathizers, or just call them elitist pigs is usually what they're composed of, who have this world domination policy where they feel people are useless feeders to be murdered and used and abused. And what I think we are suffering from in this country right now is secret organizations like the CIA and the NSA who are spying on us, taking away our liberties. Everybody's with the spying on us. Well, it's not just spying. If you have your computer online with your accounting history or patents or whatever, they're stealing all that information from you.
Okay. Do you think someone's listening to us at this moment?
Well, if you look at my website, one of the stories that's on the right under on the homepage, one of the first few, talks about how because I was trying to expose this, and I'm in a RICO in New York with a whistleblower from the inside of the New York ethics department on disciplinary discipline. What was your question? Sorry.
Oh gosh Almighty! I'm not going to.
No. I just got excited about.
I just had a very sardonic view that we're being listened to by your scenario, which, by the way, I don't discount. Maybe
okay.
A compliment.
What was published was that the whistleblower in the related cases, like me, were being monitored 24/7 for 7 years by the heads of the New York disciplinary department, who we were trying to bring down, by their misuse of joint terrorism task force funds and resources against private citizens who were complaining about this corrupt group of lawyers and judges that have taken over our system. And that's published now. We also, so when you say, are people listening? Yeah, meaning they're admitting it now, meaning the first stories we broke on this were long before Snowden, where we said that the disciplinary departments were intercepting satellite communications against anybody who was going up against them and then destroying your lives, basically. This is bizarre. I mean, I feel very threatened by it. I know that Christine Anderson does. I know that everybody who's related to her in the legal case, and there's several cases of us, are blown away that our personal rights are being invaded, and there's nobody we seem to be able to complain to that doesn't seem at this point to be part of the coup on the United States government. And let me get you to where the real coup happened. Meaning, we could go way back to Skull and Bones. Like you said, most of them are dead. We could go back to FDR. You got a very limited population. JFK, we're getting closer to today's world. But what really happened was when I invented my patents, they were worth what they say is trillions of dollars.
We'll get to that. Honestly, when I tell you we'll get to that,
it led
Eliot,
to a
no
coup.
one knows but your we'll get to it, okay?
Okay.
I'm kind of a guy that, point by point, you're coming out well. Leave it at that. Look, I'm going to quote you, and it means it's quite a quote. And just before we go for a 7-minute break, it's from Joseph Goebbels. He was Hitler's propaganda minister. And the quote is, if you tell a lie big enough, and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. All right? Now, more to the point, what he says is that truth is the mortal enemy of the lie. And by extension, truth is the greatest enemy of the state. Now, gosh, do I relate to this Goebbels in my life? Boy, oh boy. What you're saying is we can't believe anybody. We're being brainwashed.
Yes. Yes. And when Kennedy tried to expose it, they blew his head off.
Well, I'm telling you what I think about lies being accepted, and I don't understand why. This is sort of an explanation. You can brainwash people. It works.
Absolutely. That's what the Nazi scientists were conducting experiments on, was how to brainwash people. And we picked that up in America right after the war, starting in our universities with all this, I can't remember the name of it, but the brainwashing programs, whatever they were called.
Well, as a matter of fact, I know a bit about, I was actually in a week-long psychological department experiment, and I came out not brainwashed, apparently. I was unusual in that way, and I think it's showing in the rest of my life.
Well, and normally, Barry, in their situation, if they can't brainwash you, they dope you up. And if that doesn't work, they just kill you. And so, our government started all of this mind control experiments throughout, universities throughout the country, where we were, studying how to LSD them, all these things, and take control of people's brains. Because if they found out the truth, there'd be a revolution tomorrow. In fact, just look at the 60s revolution, and all of a sudden you have the kids denouncing the system that's here right now and the corruption and everything else. And what did they do? They doped them all up. They doped up all of the children. They started, the CIA's bringing in drugs from Vietnam, from Afghanistan, from everywhere that's a hot spot for drugs. We ran in there, brought the dope back to America, put it into the streets, and doped up the kids and took the real revolution from its focus of bringing down this corrupted, gone mad system.
Oh, Eliot, I hate to interrupt you. Good. You're now starting to get to the core of this. Our next hour, folks, be prepared. It's going to be difficult for you the next hour, but I'm going to make... Eliot, you're going to come off good, all right?
Okay.
But we're going to sort through the true Eliot Bernstein in 7 minutes from now. This is Barry Chamish. I think you're enjoying the show. I hope you are. See you in 7. Eliot, be here in 6.5. Gotcha?
I'm here.
Great.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit DiscountGoldandSilverTrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188. Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. Lufthansa now says that it knew 6 years ago that Andreas Lubitz had suffered from a serious depressive